Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hen's Tooth Cafe. Today, a long-awaited clone. I've been working on this for a while now. It's the clone of the Schumann Two Face Fuzz. Yay! I'd like to first of all thank Jerms over at from the Dam Forum there for his putting his trust in me and allowing me to poke inside and trace his Two Face Fuzz. Big fat thank you for that. My clone is not a spit-and image of the original. There was a couple of things that I personally didn't like vis-a-vis the original, so I incorporated them into my clone. We'll just do a run through on the controls, and I'll explain what the differences is along the way between this one and the original. It's two fuzz face derivative type circuits, one beside the other, and you can either split or link them. Splitting them, you have a positive out and a negative out, and the top four knobs here, the positive side being the NPN fuzz, you have sensitivity, drive, volume, and boost. And the negative side being the PNP side, again, sensitivity, drive, volume, and boost. One difference here between mine and the original is that the drive pot on the original was one dual gang pot, so you only had one knob that would set the drive equally for both sides. I split that so I could tweak each one individually. Over here you have a switched pot. When you switch it on, it blends clean signal in with your fuzz being output. And over here is where the madness is you have a set of clamping diodes with caps, and so you can get into, Velcro-y oscillation type fuzzes. What I also added was on the original you only had a silicone diode per side for this section, and I added a switch where you could switch a lower forward voltage germanium diode in place of the silicone, so it adds a little more texture and can change the sound of the oscillation tone or whatever you're playing with. It retains some of the peculiarities of the original, whereas when you're in split mode, if you're bypassed, you get no output from the negative or PNP side, only from the positive or NPN side. Also, in split mode, the clean will not affect the PNP negative side. It'll only come in on the positive NPN side. But if you're linked, then the clean will get pumped into both sides. So, not really a big deal, but it's just something that, if you're not aware of it, can be surprising when you first start playing with this circuit. So we're going to start in split mode. So basically I have two outputs here, a positive output for the NPN side and negative. I'm going to be starting with the NPN side, and we'll go from just straight fuzz and up to craziness from there. Just to tell you how daunting thinking about making this video was with this contraption, I had to make myself a little cue sheet there with little settings and stuff, or else I would have just been, knob twiddling and not just going aimlessly along here. So, still going to be a bit of a task to go through certain things there, but bear with me. Okay, so now in split mode. Oh, and I forgot to mention that you do have a boost as well, and each fuzz has its own boost, and you can set the boost differently for either one, and it kicks in when you kick in the boost, so it gives you a substantial volume boost. So we're going to start with the positive or NPN side, and we'll set the volume right about there. And I'm using a Strat copy El Cheapo probably still had twigs on it the week before. So we're gonna kick in the pedal. So sensitivity and drive are really what you're going to be playing with the most here. Sensitivity is basically the pot just before the fuzz section. The way it's set up is that you have an op amp driving a fuzz section. The drive is for the op amp. The sensitivity is just after the op amp and just before the fuzz on the sensitivity of the signal hitting the fuzz. You can get the op amp to go into self-oscillation. I have the sensitivity at 0 right now. So I found that the more you wind up the sensitivity, the more noise you'll get. And I found the crunchiest fuzz is having the drive just on the edge and the sensitivity just to the point where you got a signal. It's got like an ugly face type decay to it. It's a very square wave-ish fuzz. And if you want to get rid of the upper frequency crackling, you can always turn the tone down on the guitar. I'll say this now, is especially later on when we get into the oscillation part there, it's very interactive with the controls on the guitar. Now as we turn the sensitivity up, you get a little bit of noise. You can just bring the drive back just a touch there. It gets thicker, more compressed as you dial the sensitivity up. Because of course now you're bringing the signal coming out of the op amp, you know, up. And you're driving the fuzz section harder with the op amp. So what you might have to do is, as you're turning the sensitivity up, is turn the drive down to lower your noise. And if we turn the sensitivity all the way up and the drive down to about 2. Then you start having some fun. You get that octave jumping. Really reminiscent of the Sky Ripper, you know, when you got the Ripper on there and then you're playing around with the buffer, you can really get some interesting stuff. And now as you're turning the sensitivity down, you can get some gating. So that's kind of the spectrum of operation between the sensitivity and the drive. Again, you can boost it. So we'll turn this down and we'll jump over to the PNP side and we'll do the same. Works the same principle again. You know, if you can get the op amp into self-oscillation. So it's really sounds like a pissed off big muff. That's how it hits my ears. And again, you can start playing with the sensitivity in the drive. So you can get some really, really good, heavy, thick fuzz out of it. There's no doubt about that. So we'll go down back to the NPN side. And we're going to introduce a little madness here. This is like a dioid clamping section. You have 1, which is none at all. 2 is like an intermediate setting, and 3 is like totally whacked out. And then between 2 and 3, you can always decide whether you want germanium or silicone diode. 1, the switches out of the equation. So we'll go to 2, silicone diode, and we'll start. What you're hearing there is a burst of oscillation, and that comes on depending on my pick attack. If I hit it hard, you'll hear that come in, and that frequency you can kind of set using the sensitivity. If you hit it a little less hard, you just get your normal fuzzy sound. And a little bit of motorboating. And with the germanium dioide, because the forward voltage is lower, it'll be more sensitive. So really, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I've only shown you one side of the fuzz and one oscillation setting. We'll go to 3, back down to and now it's just like sheer craziness. You can set the the guitar volume will kill the oscillation. So when you get into the number 3 mode there, it's a lot dicier, and one of the mods that I made in the clone was that I used a different capacitor for the diode clamping. I upped the capacitor in it because I found that in the original it was really you really didn't have a lot of useful range, especially in the drive. It just would go right into oscillation, and it was just like nothing but screaming. There was no real settings there where I could really say, well, I can make a little bit of music with this. So we'll jump over to the PNP side, and I'll add right here that the Two Face Fuzz moniker is really quite adequate for it, because it really is, even though I matched the transistors and I tried to get the voltages as close as I could, which I did, the two fuzzes really have their own character. They're really distinct when you start getting into the oscillation ranges. And one of the real beauties about this is that in split mode, in either mode really, you can use the oscillation end of business end of things to affect the other fuzz, meaning that if I turn the sensitivity and drive down on the PNP side and use the oscillation controls on the PNP side, I can affect the NPN side and get it to do stuff that I wouldn't normally be able to do using its own oscillation control. So you can kind of crossbreed, if you will, between the two. I'll show you an example of that in a minute. We'll just give the PNP side. crank it right up on the PNP side. Sounds like I'm running it through a tremolo. How cool is that? And turning down the guitar volume, I mean, you have a bit of a limitation there, but if you turn the guitar volume down a little bit, it actually slows down the tremolo rate. Using the germanium diode slows it down even a little more. High frequency oscillation, you get sounds like a Jew's harp out of it. Okay. So now what I was saying before, being able to cross-affect one side of the fuzz with the oscillation control of the other, I have the oscillation control off on the negative side, the PNP side, but if I turn the NPN side on, there you go. So basically what I'm doing is I'm using the oscillation of the positive fuzz, the NPN fuzz, to affect my negative PNP fuzz signal. Like I said, the different combinations that you can set up there are endless. I mean, you know, I can sit here for days on end and twiddle these knobs and find all kinds of really weird and fantastical sounds. I'll just throw it onto link here, and I'll switch over back to the positive or NPN output. Go back to a normal sounding fuzz, and crank both our fuzzes up. So now we'll have both fuzzes pushing together. And in this mode, you can set each fuzz voice a little differently. You can set its own volume. You can even set its own boost. When you do decide to boost it, you know, you might want the positive fuzz to cut through a little more than the negative, or vice versa. Insofar as the clean channel is concerned, I'm just going to put it back to split here. So we're on the positive NPN fuzz. You can have a lot of clean signal mixed in. Really loud, clean signal there with an underlying fuzz. So you can play with that as well. And again, if you kick in the oscillation controls there, you can. And there you go. That's the Schumann Two Face Fuzz. It can be totally unruly and totally loud, and I think that's what it was designed to be. It's not your run-of-the-mill fuzz face that cleans up when you turn the volume down by any stretch of the imagination. Like I wrote on the forum there, this is like a love child between a really pissed off big fuzz and ugly face, and you got the Sky Ripper as the crazy uncle of the family. So, but it's a lot of fun. Just took me a while to build because I tried different things and I kept getting tone deaf, and I'd have to walk away from it for a while and then come back to it, and you play with it, and then at some point you can't see the forest for the trees anymore. So it took me a while to really get my head around it and try different things and get it to where I have a version that I like, and hopefully you like it too. So there you go. Once again, thank you for visiting, and I hope you enjoyed this demo of the Schumann Two Face Fuzz clone. Have a great day. Ciao.